Hey everyone, what's up? Yeah, I was supposed to do this last night, but you know, kind of stopped, right before I really started to get going because my mom obviously was getting up and moving around, and you know how it is with family. You don't want to think, they're gonna accidentally interrupt you when you're doing a video. So I thought I'd just do it here, and what I want to talk about is Ultima Lucha 4, Ultima Lucha Cuatro last night. Actually, last night was Ultima Lucha Cuatro, Ultima Lucha 4, Part 2. The previous week was Part 1. Now, in case you guys are wondering why Lucha Underground does this on El Rey Network, it's real simple. You see, they have a bit of a time restraint. So, instead of doing a full 3 hours, which they could do, and depending on how big the match card is, to kind of wrap up certain story arcs or continue them in some shape or form, they have to divide their equivalent of WrestleMania, the equivalent of Bound for Glory, if you will, into 2, maybe 3 parts. In fact, I think a year or 2 ago, that was probably the only time that I know of that Ultima Lucha was in 2 to about 3 parts. But yeah, the first part was a week before, and basically it was a trios tag team championship that saw the team of Exolicious, Evilise, and Sammy Guevara challenge the Reptile Tribe, and that is Daga, Jeremiah Crane, or as he's known, Jeremiah Snake, aka Sammy Callahan, and then of course Cobra Moon herself. And the match was good, but the match was good, but in the end, the Reptile Tribe ended up retaining. And I will say this: despite how you feel about Exolicious, whose real name, or the other name that EXO goes by is Sunny Kiss, despite how you might feel about him, her, whatever, I can tell you that whatever major company picks him up, basically brings him in, just give him, I can say this, just give him a little bit of time, and whether it's Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, or heck, even WWE, or maybe even MLW, Major League Wrestling, I guarantee you Sunny Kiss, Exolicious, if you will be a major hit for any one of those promotions. Basically Exolicious will be that key factor that they need. If WWE lets them come in, that'd be great, but it all depends on how they kind of change up the character, or kind of, I wouldn't say change it up totally, but kind of make it to where it's kind of PG-13 friendly. So yeah, that's a big, situation you look at when it comes to Sunny Kiss. If he goes to WWE, NXT, and all that, is how they're going to change up his character, or at least kind of redefine it to fit more into the product they want to present. The other match was Mask versus Mask. We had Son of Havoc against Killshot. Both men are known outside of Lucha Underground as Matt Cross and Shane Strickland. They had a good match, from what I've heard, and in the end, Son of Havoc did win the match. And because of this, Killshot had to remove his mask, and by doing so, he revealed his name, which is Jermaine Strickland, as far as Lucha Underground goes, his background and why he wore the mask, because, he felt ashamed for what he had done, going AWOL, leaving his brothers to die in the field. So yeah, Strickland's character, Killshot, basically, at the end of all this, was written off because he decided to leave the temple, had one last confrontation, kind of like come full circle thing with A.R. Fox, Dante Fox, and basically Strickland's character, as of right now, has been written off. So that leads us into this week. And this week was a lot more crazier than you thought. It was a lot more crazier than you thought. Oh yeah, and I think we also had a Gift of the Gods Battle Royal in part 1 as well. That was run by Jake Strong, aka Jack Swagger. Now, getting to part 2. This one was... Part 2 is when it really started to pick up for Ultima Lucha. I mean, it's what a lot of people expected from Ultima Lucha. The first match we had was a 2 out of 3 falls match between Rey Fenix, or Dark Phoenix, as he's known in Lucha Underground, or just Phoenix, against I'm trying to pronounce this wrong. I'm trying to pronounce this right. Dragon Actesic Jr. or Dragon Actesic, easy for me to say. Easy for me to say, Dragon Actesic Jr. or whatever. Basically the son of the original Dragon Azteca. Oh, that's what it is. Dragon Azteca Jr., son of the original Dragon Azteca, fought Phoenix in the 2 out of 3 falls match. Very good opener. Phoenix got the first fall real quickly. Then Dragon Azteca got the second fall with a satellite DDT. And then the third fall was made into a Falls Count Anywhere match when Antonio Cueto came out, said he was impressed by it, but felt that they needed to really amp it up a bit and decided to add Falls Count Anywhere. So we get that, and the storytelling, I'll say this, the wrestling was good. The storytelling, especially coming from Melissa Santos, very, very spot on, because she basically did not want to see them beating the hell out of each other anymore. And it got to a point where she got on the ring apron. Well, I wouldn't say the ring apron. Well, yeah, she did. And she basically distracted Dragon Azteca Jr. to the point that Phoenix was able to take advantage and then hit his Phoenix driver to his Phoenix driver, or in this case, Lucha Underground case, his Dark Phoenix driver, his Blackbird as he calls it, to win the match. And Melissa, she basically walked away from it, and essentially, I guess, walked away from Lucha Underground as far as the story goes. But basically, her loss turned into Lucha Underground's gain, because Antonio Cueto basically wasted no time in saying that he had just signed someone new to do the guest ring announcing for the rest of the event, and it was Eddie and Vicky Guerrero's daughter, Charol Guerrero. The way she pronounces her name is Charol Guerrero. Guerrero. It's it's spelled S-H-A-U-L. Charol Guerrero. And she got into a bit of a argument, or a bit of a face-off with Famous B, because he basically felt, hey, I'm the only one qualified. This brought out Chavo, and basically both Guerreros kicked Famous B's butt. And I like the fact if Charol Guerrero is going to stick around as a ring announcer, that she's the kind that will be able to hold her own. That if you get in her face, she'll get back in yours. And that's what we saw here. They had a great moment here. We had Charol do the Three Amigos, and then Chavo did a frog splash, basically tributing to Eddie. Now, with that said, the next match that was on the menu, if you will, was it was Johnny Mundo. It was Johnny Mundo against Matanza Cueto in a Sacrifice to the Gods match. Matanza Cueto came out with a new garment, basically, I guess, as Alex Dalyxman put it, his final form, his ceremonial garment that basically marks, like, this is the ceremonial garment of death, or whatever it was. And Johnny comes out with the Gauntlet of the Gods, which Antonio Cueto immediately notices and says, that did not belong to you. doesn't belong to you, and that he's going to basically plan to take you back after the match is done. So the match was alright. Basically, it was kind of like a cat and mouse, but it went both ways. The cat and mouse part started, the first cat and mouse portion of this started with Johnny trying to put on some offense. He used the gauntlet, and then I guess he lost the gauntlet, and basically became a cat and mouse. So he was trying to get the gauntlet back so he can use it against Matanza, because he knew that would probably be the only way to defeat him. So they're going back and forth. They're going all over the new temple, to the point that Matanza takes the gauntlet from one of the stairs, or one of the benches, or seating areas that the audience is at, and just chucks it over to the top of a freezer, and the freezer, which is kind of a freezer entrance that the superstars come through. So he chucks it on top of that. Johnny does his best to go after it, and does this insane move where he goes from like one end, like here's Johnny, I don't know if you can see this, here's Johnny like right here, here's where the gauntlet was. Okay, so here's Johnny right here. He parkours, he basically does a leap of faith over to this thing, grabs on to the roof of the freezer entrance, but his legs are like dangling to the point that Matanza is able to grab them and then slam him into the wall. But as he's trying to do more damage, Johnny grabs onto the roof of the freezer to get the gauntlet back, but Matanza's following him up there, grabs Johnny as soon as Johnny gets the gauntlet and puts it on, grabs Johnny and chucks him downward through the freezer entrance, and everybody's thinking that's it. Matanza's music starts to play a bit. You're thinking that's it. Johnny's gone. He's history. That's not the case, because what happens is Johnny emerges out of there. The doors just slide open, and Johnny's just standing there like, "That the best you got?" He raises his arm up with the gauntlet on it, and Matanza's face goes from, well, you can't really see his face, but through his eyes, the eyes go from a monster of destruction to a monster in fear. Because basically now we get to the other portion of cat and mouse, but this time it's Johnny going after Matanza and basically beating the hell out of him, punch after punch after punch, or whatever, with the gauntlet, to the point that he finally, after giving Antonio Cueto the bird, he basically, with the arm that's using the gauntlet, he uses the gauntlet to give Antonio Cueto the bird, hits one more punch on Matanza, pins him, and wins the match. So Matanza loses his first sacrifice to the gods match to Johnny Mundo. Then we get a backstage segment with an Aerostar saying that he needs to take the gauntlet back, because last week, and I get this, and I didn't see this part, but last week Aerostar gave the gauntlet to Johnny to take down Matanza. But now Aerostar needs it back for something else. Johnny at first wants to keep it, and then whatever spirit is inside of it tries to take control of him. But Johnny, I guess he's too strong-willed. It's like, oh no, only one person owns this body, and that is me. Takes the gauntlet off, gives it to Aerostar. Basically says he's going to go celebrate with his wife, and that's something in itself. So anyway, after that, we get the death match between the Mac and Mil Muertes, I believe. Well, I'm probably going out of order here, but I know one of them was next. I know either Mil Muertes and the Mac was either the second match of the night or the third, whatever. But we get a death match, and you talk about violent. It wasn't, I will say this, it wasn't as violent as you would think, but the weapons they used here could definitely show you potential of it being really violent. Basically, you had things, Mill comes out with two caskets, or comes out with one casket and goes and gets another one. This one, I guess, is the one filled with weapons. And they start basically, I mean, at first it was just like rough wrestling, brawling a little bit. But as soon as the weapons came in, these were weapons that you don't normally see in a kind of a deathmatch hardcore like style sometimes. You had an ice pick, you had an axe, you had all kinds of stuff. And Mill is using the ice pick literally on the Mac, drilling it, kind of spiking it into his head. The Mac is able to turn the tables using on Mill. They had chairs in there. They used everything they can think of that they could get their hands on. And in the end, it took not one, not two, not three, but 4 stunners, I believe, for the Mac to put Mil Muertes away for good. And then by doing so, he opens up the other coffin, which is empty, and literally drags Mill's body into it, Mill towards it, puts him in it, I should say, and shuts the casket. And as Dalyxman pointed out on his Twitter and on his review of Ultima Lucha Cuatro, without Katrina, there's no way Mil Muertes comes back. But already there are some, like Dalyxman, wondering that might be the case, but they might find a way to bring him back. Then we get to the main event, Zero Fear, Zero Fear. The match known as Zero Fear, Zero Miedo, between Pentagon Dark, or Pentagon Jr., and Marty the Moth Martinez. And this match was violent. Not on the level, as people would say, Vampiro's match, Vampiro and Pentagon's match from the first Ultima Lucha, which was also a Zero Miedo, Zero Fear match. But it came close. It came really close. I mean, these guys used everything. I mean, Marty was the first to get busted open, but the one thing that was always described about Marty's character is he's crazy he's loco in the El Cabeza. You know what I'm saying? He's loco in the El Cabeza. So, by being loco in the El Cabeza, Marty, he's covered in blood, but he's laughing. He's enjoying it. So they're using everything on each other. They're using chairs, they're using kendo sticks, they're using a lunchbox and a fork. And that was one part that really got a lot of people uneasy. Because what happened is Marty takes this fork out of this lunchbox. He tears open Pentagon's mask just a bit and starts stabbing him with the fork to the point that once he pulls the fork off of Pentagon, he lifts it up and you could see just bits of Pentagon's skin coming up, literally on the fork. And it's like, oh, that is so, it's like, it's like you can only get a little queasy. So anyway, they keep fighting. They're using tables and stuff. They're using tables. They're using tables. Martinez brings out a gasoline can, gets ready to pours gasoline on Pentagon, and then teases that he's going to light him on fire. Because we saw that in the first one, in the first Cero Miedo match. So that doesn't happen though. I guess he teased it but didn't do it. That doesn't happen. They go to the outside, and Pentagon tosses in the final moments of the match, and this is where it turned the tide into Pentagon's favor to win. Pentagon basically tosses Marty the Mars Martinez into a plain glass window set up on the outside. Basically, there's a moment where Martinez makes a mistake. Pentagon looks like he leaps off of the announce table and does literally a Canadian destroyer, or whatever it's called in Mexico, on Martinez, and then takes Martinez, tosses him through the plain glass window, and then gets him in the ring afterwards, sets up 8 chairs back to back. Like, here's one chair on this end, here's another chair on this end. So he sets it up and hits his Pentagon driver on Martinez through those chairs to win the match. So yeah, Pentagon is champion once again, but then out comes Reclusa, Chelsea Green, to attack Pentagon, but Vampiro comes in, runs her off, grabs the championship, hands it, literally kind of does this, hands it to Pentagon, and then low blows him, kicks him right in the you-know-whats. Pentagon, though, returns the favor, and they're beating basically each other. It's basically like I think Matt Striker said it best. It was the first Zero Fear match revisited. He even said that if Vampiro gets a taste of blood and gets a hands on these weaponries, it's not good for anybody. But then, doing all this, out comes this other wrestler that looks like a smaller version of Pentagon Dark, Pentagon Jr. They're wearing like some kind of skull thing, and then they take it off to reveal that basically, like I said, they look like a smaller version of Pentagon. And basically what they do is they beat up on Pentagon a little bit to the point that they get him on the outside. This person who calls him, who we find out is Vampiro's master, we find out this is Vampiro's master, goes to the entranceway, to the balcony way above the entrance, hits a shooting star press off that balcony area. Then they throw Pentagon into the ring, and this master of Vampiros hits a red arrow. Hits the red arrow, or basically a twisting shooting star press. And one thing that really got Dalyxman when he was talking about this live on his review is he's wondering if maybe this master is actually Neville, aka Pac. Is it Pac, P-A-C, or, formerly known in WWE as Neville? Is it him? But I looked at this master character, and it definitely does not look like Neville, because Neville is a little bit bigger and got more muscles. So they could switch it up to where it is Neville next year playing the master, but I don't think so. And also, at first, maybe it was just me, but this master character seemed to look very female. Very feminine in a way. Maybe that was just me. Maybe that's the way it came off of Claris on television. But they looked like a female wrestler underneath. Again, I could be wrong. I don't know who it is that's playing the master, but it's somebody. It's somebody we're going to probably find out about down the line. Anyway, after that, Jack Swagger, or Jake Strong as he's known here in Lucha Underground, comes out and decides to cash in his Gift of the Gods Championship, because one of the things they did do earlier this year, because of Marty the Marth Martinez, is Antonio Cueto changed up the rules to where you didn't have to wait a week. You could cash in anytime you want, kind of like Money in the Bank. So Jake Strong cashes in, gets Pentagon into the ankle lock, and Pentagon passes out from the pain and the loss of blood, and Jake Strong basically ends the season in ring wrestling wise, as the new Lucha Underground champion, which a lot of people did not like. They called BS on it, but basically that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get the people not to like the decision because of the way it was done. Now, fast forward, we get to our end credits, if you will, basically our post-credit scenes for Lucha Underground Season 4. And we have Johnny going to meet up with Taya, saying, suggesting they get out of there, go start the honeymoon and everything. But Taya informs Johnny, because she's not saying anything, and Johnny's like, you okay, kind of deal. And Taya basically turns around and says, I'm not your wife. Grabs Johnny, lifts him up, drags him all over the place. We don't know if she kills him. That's kind of up to the imagination, but basically says, I'm not your wife. I am a god. And you hear the laughter of the doll, because basically the doll that we saw, the Rosa doll, as it's called, throughout the season, has now possessed Taya. Basically saying, at the beginning, I didn't see this part though, but basically saying at the beginning that Taya is beautiful and that she'd be a perfect host. So yeah, the doll ends up possessing Taya. And now Taya is possessed by a god. Also, during the post-credit scenes, we saw Dragoness Tekka Jr., King Queno, and Aerostar meet up. Dragoness Tekka says he needs to borrow the gauntlet because she needs it to take care of something. Aerostar says make it real quick. And we find out that the she that needs to use the gauntlet is Black Lotus, who we had not seen for a couple of seasons. She shows up and basically kills Matanza with it, basically using the power of the gauntlet on him, and then using it to rip out Matanza's heart, and he dies. Then she gives the gauntlet. Then after she's done her thing, she gives the gauntlet back to Dragoness Tekka, who's about to leave, and then he gets attacked by Jake Strong from behind, basically saying, "This doesn't belong to you. This belongs to us." And he's hitting himself with the gauntlet on his chest, and you see the blood of it coming off. And then we have him, and then later on we have Jake Strong enter a limousine that's parked outside. And in this limo, at first we see Antonio Cueto, Agent Winter, the Master, and now we see Jake Strong. And we don't see Taya, so she'll probably meet up with them later, I guess. But basically, they suggest that everything is in place now. They got most of the things that they need. Antonio Cueto is feeling a little sad when he finds out the blood on the gauntlet is Matanza's, because he knows exactly what happened. But basically, they all say that everything is set and in place. And then we finally meet the one that's behind it all, the Lord and Master of these gods, these ancient gods. And it's Wade Barrett. Stu Bennett, Wade Barrett, Bad News Barrett. And he basically appears on screen like, now anybody else got any bad news? Taking a dig, I guess, at his old gimmick. They say no. And then he basically says, well, I guess it's now time to take over the world. And that's where we end with them. But then we get to one last part, and that is Aerostar showing up 1 year before, when Antonio Cueto is shutting the casket on Dario Cueto, his son, who was killed at the end of season 3. He's shutting the casket, but he's taking the key to Matanza before he does that, or to Matanza's cage or whatever before he does that. But then we see Aerostar show up. He opens up the casket, puts the medallion of immortality around the neck of Dario Cueto. It's basically the two pieces of medallion from Katrina and Katrina's mom, who also ended up dying, basically finally passing on, I guess you could say, in peace to the next life. And basically he uses both medallions now whole again, which are now whole again. He uses the medallions of immortality to wake up, or to resurrect Dario Cueto, as he says, "Wake up and come with me." Cueto's eyes just open up. He looks, sees Aerostar, and he's like, "Aerostar?" Then he just sits up like real quickly, I guess noticing where he's at, and goes like, "What the?" And then it just ends with a "to be continued." So obviously it seems we may be getting to season 5. And I'll probably do a speculation video on that later. But yeah, it looks like we're getting season 5 of Lucha Underground. And that's all I can really say. Ultima Lucha Cuatro definitely lived up to the hype. Definitely helped season 4 that started off slow and strong. So let's see what Season 5 has for us, and that's all I'm going to say. Let me know what you guys think down below.